In today's episode of the Pathway Presents podcast, I got a very interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Stephen O'Neill, who is hailing over from the folks over at Konfir. And Konfir is basically all about instant employment verification for workers all across the UK. And we want to deep dive into what Konfir does in detail, but also very much so as we're on the Pathway Presents podcast, how Stephen is thinking about growth for the company. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Lucas. I'm very glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah. So maybe give people like a quick overview. What is Konfir all about in your own words?
Sure. So I think you hit the nail on the head. We are effectively a verification of employment and an income validation platform. And we're a service that ultimately suits and benefits the consumer in the market and helps them to progress with life events. That life event may be getting a job, it may be buying a car, getting a mortgage, whatever that is. Those are typically processes that have been very manual in their nature and very time consuming. And we've come at it from a wholly different approach, and through innovative technology, we've dramatically reduced the turnaround times down from weeks and days to minutes and seconds.
Very good. Now, tell us a little bit about the companies you work with, or the sort of the stakeholders that are surrounding Konfir a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So the application of our service could be used by any number of organizations, but where we've started the journey is certainly within the background checking environment, the background checkers within the UK economy. So that's not to say that we won't go international in terms of our aspirations, but at the moment we're targeting those large background checkers that provide pre-employment screening and vetting for the large employers, regardless of the worker segment. So permanent headcount, contingent labour and temporary all need to be background checked, and employment verification is one aspect of that, and that's the service that we're targeting. Our strategy will be clearly we are becoming a partner and a service provider to those organisations, and we've had great early traction in our journey. We're now moving towards the employers themselves, because 50% of the market have their own internal background checking service that they self-deliver on, and then we're obviously going to spread our wings internationally to further offer services to those existing clients.
Very good. Cool. That makes a lot of sense. Now, who are the individuals within those organizations that would reach out?
Yep. So in terms of who does it benefit, it's clearly the consumer, the employer, you and I, effectively. So when we want to change a job, one of the key requirements is that the future employer, your intended new employer, will run a series of background checks on you. And one of those elements is an employment reference. So to do that, the employer will have either their HR community, their talent acquisition or their recruitment partners, or they'll use a third-party service provider, typically a background checker, to go away and do that service for them. Those are the individuals that we are typically targeting. Those are the personas that we are offering our service to, who are most likely to buy it. It's fairly complex because it's a neat mix between compliance, HR, technology, information security, and all these worlds come together to to deliver a service around background checking. So to answer your question, Lucas, there's a load of different interested parties, all typically at C-suite, because there are punitive financial and reputational measures that you don't want to get it wrong, because you may create a data breach, you may create a data problem, and that in itself holds a whole variety of issues for an organization, as you can imagine.
Makes a lot of sense. Now, how do these guys actually learn about Konfir? Like, what's the journey that they're going through in order to get in touch with you guys at the first place?
Yep. So we are clearly marketing ourselves extensively. We are following our own growth through investment and through some early collaborations with some early adopters. Effectively, we've now gone to general availability, and we've really been, as I said earlier on, targeting the background checking market. We are conservatively, we have relationships with about 80% of the UK background checkers, and we're really delighted with the adoption rates within those existing clients in terms of the usage of our service. But how they find us, very simply, clearly we have a high profile on things like LinkedIn. We promote ourselves strongly via those means. But effectively, anybody that would have an interest would come and speak to myself or any members of the Konfir team, all of whom are readily available.
Awesome. Very cool. Now, obviously you're in growth, right? You're basically deep diving. You're actually, head of growth at Konfir. So,
Right.
how do you think about the website? Like, what role does the website play in the buyer's journey?
Yeah, I think that's evolved over the years. So you would have seen, I've been within the background checking space for a good few years, and it's very definitely technology has lent itself to a whole different approach, perhaps than what was experienced historically. The website is really important. It's effectively an online brochure, of course it is, but it's also a way of getting hold of us. By far and away, the most important side of it is the actual technology and getting a demonstration of what that technology can do, and a good understanding of where we sit in terms of the workflow of an onboarding journey of an employee. Or a contingent labor worker or a temporary worker, whichever the worker segment might be. And we're very, very keen to underline how we can fit seamlessly into that process. So clearly, I mentioned earlier on, the background checkers will be servicing probably 50% of the UK market from an employer perspective. We would look to integrate our technology into their own background checking screening tooling, and so that effectively it's absolutely seamless in terms of the handoffs between the two platforms, and that ultimately the consumer benefits by a reduced turnaround time, an improved time to hire, and most importantly, absolute fantastic candidate experience. And all those things are possible through the technology.
Very good. Cool. So, now you mentioned the website and the demonstration. Like, what do you personally consider? Because we got marketers on the show that are continuously working on the page, right? There's always some strength to a website. There's some room for improvement. How do you think about Konfir's page at the moment in terms of, what's the strength, what's the room for improvement?
Yeah, I think we're forging new ground in terms of a methodology within background checking, and as ever, it's important to demonstrate that as accurately as easily as you possibly can be, and the website is certainly one of those means to achieving that. We've obviously used our own over and above the website, which is hugely important. We reach out via a load of different means, typically on social media and the such like, and we believe that certainly from a B2B perspective, we are getting out to all the right people. They're aware of who we are, and it's now proving that we can do what we say we can do, through those media.
Nice, very cool. Let's switch gears a little bit, right? You've been it's actually quite interesting. You've been in the background check industry quite a while now. How do you keep on up to date about that industry? I mean, it's a very specific and unique industry. Like, as a marketer, how do you keep on? What's our like go-to resources that you personally like to frequently, visit and research on that help you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the industry has a number of really impressive facilities within it for information gathering and research, not least the Industry Trade Association, which is the Professional Background Screening Association.
Mhm.
And that has both online tools and a network of individuals that you can lean upon. But you're absolutely right. You're making sure that you're current in a space that once was very manual, but now is very digital, is absolutely key. So we absolutely monitor not just the UK environment, but on a global basis, what technologies are being released by which organisations that maybe not necessarily focused on background checking, but that could be perhaps used in a different way. An alternative route to market could be through our industry, and we've seen the advent of things like blockchain, of AI, of ML, and all the robotics and the such like, really taking an impact on the background checking space. It's great to be at the bleeding edge of the development cycle, and certainly verification of employment, which is what Konfir is all about, is right at that pinnacle. So inevitably there'll be not some doubters, but people asking the right questions as to, is this compliant? Is this the most effective way of doing it? Does this take any unnecessary shortcuts, etc.? But once you've kicked kicked the tires, made sure that the processes are robust, most importantly compliant, cost effective and digital, then that's in line with the general trajectory within the market. So we feel very comfortable that we're doing the right thing at the right time with the right technology platform.
I see. Okay, now I got some rapid fire questions to wrap it up for today.
Go for it.
What's the last book you read or the last podcast you listened to?
The last podcast I listened to was a thing called The Team House. And it was a military podcast, all about the sort of the struggles in Afghanistan.
Yeah, and also for people who are listening in, right, you got some background in the Royal Military Academy Center.
I have indeed. Yes, indeed.
Gotcha. Very good. Now, what's one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
It's the candidate experience. It's all about the consumer. Whereas perhaps the focus from the background checking space has been the employer. We are putting the power back in the hands of the individual. I think that's hugely important.
If there would be no boundaries in tech, right? You can do everything. You have a magic wand as a marketer. What's the one thing you would fix for your role as a marketer?
I think it would be the speed of adoption. If there was some way of I think what we've done in the last 18 months as a business is shown that there is a new way of doing something that was very manual, and the benefits are obvious to all parties in the equation. It's really overcoming the old ways and introducing the new ways, and making the adoption perhaps a little bit more easy. But I suppose if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, and that's why there's innovators like Konfir out there.
Very cool. Very last question. If today would be, so if we actually go back to the days of Royal Military Academy or centers,
yes,
that we talked about. So let's say you're heading out of the academy into the world, and ultimately, right, into the world of business, sales, and marketing. What's the one advice you would give yourself for your journey?
I think it would be bold, be courageous, take chances on really looking for the things that are going to have the biggest impact on the market, rather than perhaps following the crowd. What do I mean by that? I spent the first few years of my life as a recruiter, alongside many others, and we were just repeating a process that hadn't really been innovated for many, many years. Only since I've really been in the world of background checking, but particularly with Konfir, have I been able to really innovate. And that's been professionally interesting and rewarding for everybody that we've been involved with.
Very cool, Steve. I really appreciate you took the time with us today.
Likewise.
On Pathing Presents, I want to give you the very last word. If people would be forgetting all that we discussed about Konfir, what's the one thing they should remember?
I think your data is your data, and you have the control of it. So take control of it and expedite those life decisions and those life events in a much quicker fashion.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathing Presents.
Thanks very much indeed.